Hello and hi to everyone. Today, we will be starting the webinar in a short while. Thank you once again to join another interesting webinar from Securiton. A warm welcome to all the audience today. Without any further ado, we will proceed with our agenda for today. Those who just came in, kindly switch off your microphone and camera before we proceed with our webinar today. And before we start, let's get into our agenda for today and with the topic of recycling using our beam detection system. The topic which I'll be covering today will start with the beam detection itself, inside knowledge of all about beam, followed by code and standard that been used and practiced in various countries, mainly with the tool-driven market and other practices used for beam detection, followed by Securiton beam detection range, what Securiton has to offer. Again, and on the fourth subject, we will have the insulation guideline, which mostly will be covered from the practices of fire standards. And eventually I'll do a conclusion on some of the detection that we have done using our beam detection in the market. So with that note, let's get into the details followed. About myself, my name is Seelan. I've been with the Securiton for the last 15 years on the technical department based in HQ, taking care of all the technical support around the world. And let's dive into our topic for today, recycling plant. But before that, to understand, we get into what is beam detection and what is all about the beam detectors. The question is, what is a beam detector? It's an optical beam smoke detector and a device that uses a projected beam of light to detect smoke across large area, typically as is an indicator of fire. And they are used to detect fire in buildings where standard point type detectors or smoke detectors would either be uneconomical or fail to do the job, or in the other word, restricted by the use of the height of the building and other various issues in the building. Optical beam smoke detectors are often installed in warehouses as a cost-effective means of protecting a large or open spaces. So how does the whole concept works? Is the projected lights are detected across a smoke, and the smokes which is entering through the beam path across the lane will decreases the light signal from one to the other end, depending on type of beam used. It will signaled signaled a smoke detection, or the value is transferred as a smoke value and will give an alarm. So it's a simple economical way of how smoke's being detected in a very large area or restricted areas. Now, looking about the type of beam detectors in the market, they're usually driven by two types of beam detection. The first one is called end-to-end, and the other word is transmitter and receiver, which have you seen in the presentation now. The transmitter and receiver are mounted in either end of a protected area, one end to the end, and it's emitted the beam, and it is also emitted from the receiver as well. But we also have the second type, which is called reflective. Reflective is a transmitter and receiver are mounted in the same housing, and the beam is directed in a specific design reflector. So in the other end, you have a reflector. So when the beam pointing out towards the reflector, it reflects the beam back to the same detector, and then it's evaluated. So these are the two types. Either you have a transmitter and a receiver unit, or you have a transmitter and a reflector. These are the two types available beams in the market. Mainly what we will be focusing today will be the transmitter and receiver type, because this is more it's better to be used in the environment such as recycling. Now the question is, why should we use the beam detector? Ultimately, for a large open indoor spaces, beam detectors are the perfect life safety solution, as they are quick and as well as easy to install and can offer protection in a very high ceiling as well as hard to reach areas when point detectors are unsuitable. So especially when point detector failed to do the job, something else has to work in a large space for extreme ceiling height, more than 7 meters, for example, because certain norms specifically mention anything more than 7 or 9 meters according to different standards in around the world. You need a special detector to detect the smoke. That's why beam detectors for getting into the picture. Second, the large open area. If it's the area is too large and point detectors would be insufficient or have a limitations that the smoke reaches to this point detector and to be detected. And this is where the number of beams installed in large area, it's to shorten the ability to detect faster. The other issues with higher buildings, such as recycling or open space, is stratification. Stratification, whereby there's a heat buffer in every other buildings due to the ceiling height, and the smokes sustained or smokes which is produced will remain in certain height of a building. This will be difficult for a point detector or any other detectors which is installed at the level of ceiling height. This is where beam detectors can be used or is suitable to be used to solve stratification issue. The other issues we also will face is hazardous zones, whereby some smoke detectors or most smoke detectors, which is not ATAGs, for example, are not suitable to be installed in hazardous area or any chemicals producing factories, which have a limitation to certain detection or detectors to be used. And lastly, of course, the economy scale. If you the number of detectors or a point type detectors needed for a very large open area will be more compared to a beam detection, which will save the distance between one to another according to the standard, which we will cover in short while. We will know the number of beams versus the point type detector. It's lesser, so economically it's better in terms of detection, faster in the other word, and suitable to be used in such areas. So with that note, we diving into what are the limitations that we will face with such application that we are talking about today, which is the recycling plant. See, early example of it's prone for false alarm. So every time when we hear about beam detections in the market, is of course they said it's not stable, it is prone for smoke, easily can have a false alarm. These are the issues we will always or mostly hear in the market. So that's why we said possible reasons are the buildup of dust, because we are going to diving into recycle plants application. Obviously, the number of dust accumulated in such buildings are quite drastic, dust and debris and whatsoever in the recycling plant. So the lower the detection threshold for the detector, causing the system to enter alarm when no fire was present. So there's also an issue. And then modern devices uses automatic gain as a mean of adaptation, the signal for those effects. So, and second one is the building movement causes the optical beam detectors to lose alignment. This is most common issues when we hear the beam detection. Because the movement, of course, this is a area recycle. For example, you have high machineries or heavy duty machineries working in it, which can cause slight movement. This can misalign the detection area by the beam. So we have a solution on how we can set and how our beam detection works to solve such issues, which we will be covering up in short while. So these are the common issues and limitations that we will hear or we will face when we're using a beam detector. Now, where we use the beam detector. Now we've seen what is beam detector. We have heard about what are the limitations and where shall we use the beam detector. Today we were talking about harsh environment, where recycling plants is one of the topic we are looking into. So this example or pictures are taken in real time or a real installation using the beam detectors from us. And as you can see in the recycle plant, already you have a tremendous amount of smoke circulating around the building, which already can cause a false alarm in a realistic way of thinking. Now, that's the reason we also have a compensation algorithm for dust accumulation that, as you can see in the picture itself, it is working fine without any false alarm has been shown. And we also have issues of trusses, or we call it the blinds on the ceiling, which also can cause obstacles in terms of direct detection from reflectors and transmitter. So these are the problems we will also see. So point type detectors may not able to solve such issues or environment and as well as structure. Okay, so that's where we are looking into beam detection and how we can use the beam detectors. Now, we understand is about the beam, we understand about the limitations and how we're going to use it in the recycle. We need to understand how we install it and what are the guidelines should be followed in order to install the beam. For that, we look into the fire codes and standards available around the world, but mainly I'll be focusing on BS 5839, which narrow down into detections for beams. There are also seven NFPA as well, but I'm only covering on the BS standards, British standard. Here, the distance, the maximum mentioned distance is 200. That's a system limit from us. Obviously, you have to look into your local standards as well. Like certain countries, I'm aware, it's shorter in terms of the maximum distance from transmitter or receiver. So please bear in mind, but the system limit of the beam detection is 200 meters. With that, from the wall, one end to the other end, that's a distance, and the maximum distance between a beam to next beam would be 15 meters. And of course, from the end of the building, for the from the end to end is 7.5 meter, and in between of the beams are 15 meters. Now, if you look into another clause from BS 5839, it's also mentioned how do you install when do you have insulation height to be considered. So when you have insulation at a lower heights are required for units of detectors, then this shall be used as a calculation whereby they clearly mentioned the height that is 10 meters from the floor. You shall have the detection, and if it's more than 20 meter, then you should also have on the optical beam on the top apex for extra coverage for 25% of the roof angle, which is 25 degree. And this is how we look into insulation on buildings which is higher or higher than 10 meters. And as well as the roof may be treated as flat as well, depending on the apex of the building. So as I said, anything less than 600 mm, it's considered as a flat ceiling. Then you can use it as a normal detection between 7.5 meter from starting and 15 meters in distance of them. And we can also see here on the clause 22.5F, we have less than 2.7 meters. When you have a different heights, we can also shall install the beam as well. And the important factor here that we need to look into when you have open space, like in the picture, this is usually in recycle plant as well. It is advised or it is considered that you shall install in a metal sheet or cladding, which is to prevent any vibration. In the other word, you need to mount this in a solid structure. If the structure is, it's prone for vibration or any movement, it will give you a false alarm. So if that was taken care, then there shall not be a problems in terms of detection. So this is also mentioned in the clause 22.5 in terms of insulation of the beam. Now, lastly, we also talk about the ceiling height or the system limit of a beam shall be used. Again, from BS 5839, the maximum that you can go is about 25.20.0 up to 40, depending on the beam detection alarm threshold, which is from 4.5 to 60 OBS. Okay, so that's the information which we can take out from BS standard. Now, with that knowledge of insulation and where to be installed, the heights and the obstacles inside the building or a large open space, we will go into the portfolio of Securiton beam detection system. Here, I will be covering on the portfolio, the strength of us, what are the benefits compared to the competitors or compared to the other people in the market, a specification of our ELIA, and the application field as well. So we have a few types of ELIA which is available. I'll be most concentrating on the ELIA and ELIA UL for the market, where in European market we have the ELIA normal, which is certified under EN. Elsewhere, we can also use ELIA UL. In Asian market or in Middle East, you can use the ELIA UL. In here, you could see we have the normal type, which is BSD 535. This is, as I mentioned, we have two types of detection. First is the end-to-end transmitter receiver that we will look into ELIA, ELIA Pro, and ELIA ATEX. Whereas we're talking about reflector, transmitter and reflector, that would be BSD 535. So for a normal application, a normal non-hazardous zone or non-harsh environment, BSD 535 will be suitable to be used with the distance of 3 to up to 100 meters. And with the IP31, it's suitable for a normal application. When we're talking about recycle plant, which we are our main topic for today, then we opt to ELIA and ELIA UL as well as ELIA Pro together with ELIA ATEX, depending on the classification of the recycle plant. Mostly, we will also concentrate on ELIA Pro because ELIA Pro has capabilities of going into a wider range of detection, from minimum detection in terms of sensitivity that can be covered from a very low sensitivity to a very high sensitivity. So they have the range higher and suitable to be used in recycling plant. Whereas ELIA, normal ELIA, which will work in standard to minimum harsh environment as well. Both works in IP65, so that's suitable for such harsh environment. Whereas the ATEX goes up to IP66 in terms of temperature range. It goes up to plus 65, and then it is also suitable to work in cold environment where minus 20 are considered as a minimum. So with that knowledge of type and range of products available, I will dive into other accessories that which comes with the ELIA to enhance the programming as well as detection. Here we also have a controller, the SRL2 Pro controller. These are the controller used to program, to reprogram, or to do a maintenance test on all the ELIAs. Up to 8 number of ELIA can be connected to a single controller. We also have CLI controller. This will be connected to our Securify system and can be monitored, controlled, and you can get information as well, such as event memories from the CLI controller. We have two types I've mentioned, ELIA, normal ELIA, as well as ELIA Pro. For tough environment or harsh environment recycling plant, it is always suggested to use the ELIA Pro. With a note, as I mentioned before, it is capable of detecting sensitivity from lower to a very high level of sensitivity range. And ILIA ATEX, we also have the IP66 version of ILIA ATEX, which is built for detection on a modulation resulting from the start of a fire under different condition, which is also called ATEX application zones. So this actually is built in a container that ensures installations are suitable in zone 1, zone 2, zone 21, as well as zone 22 classified areas. And with that, we also have the relevant accessories which will go with such environment. As you can see in recycled plants, around the year, the working condition, it will accumulate a lot of dust and dirt, and some other issues with the beams can be dusty. With that, we have all the accessories, which, for example, we have this protective cover when we need to clean the certain areas or the area where the beam detection has been installed. You can have the protective housing to cover the beam and proceed with the maintenance routine cleaning and as well, and then you can remove back the protective cover. We also have the protective cage to be installed to prevent from animals such as birds to vandalize or sitting on the beam detection is being installed. We also have a wall ceiling bracket which can be installed on wall to make it, two reasons behind this. First, to make it firm, and it's this bracket is easily to be movable, so you can adjust the level of the beam at your convenient. So these are the accessories available which catered with the beam. Now talking about IP protection, industrial grade protections, we have the IP65 as well as IP66 for the ATEX version. And also to be mentioned here, we have a coated glass that repels from dust, water droplets, or grease or dirt. As you can see earlier from the real-time installation, how dusty the environment, and the ILIA is still performing at its utmost. And this is also anti-reflective, that ensure there's no signal clarity is always there, and there is no wrong reflections from this beams as well. With that, it's improved the durability of the optics as well. Now, talking about the extended sensitivity, which I mentioned earlier with the ILIA Pro, we have a wide range of sensitivity can be chosen. We have from 4.5 obscuration up to 60 to the maximum. So there are wide range of sensitivity computing products. And here the total number of level that you can preset would be 23 based on the application. In fact, we will also recommend in our technical document for recycled plant, the relevant settings shall be used, but you can also have the flexibility to reset up and low sensitivity from 4.5 up to 60 OBS. In talking about stability concerning the beam detection, we have dual IR transmission, which means is redundancy. Then the wider range that you could able to do, as you can see in the picture on your right, the front view, it's the double the infrared beam detection. So you have a wider range of detection. So this makes it approximately 5-meter deviation tolerance. So this makes it more stable in terms of slight movement in the building or slight misalignment happens and it's compromised, yet the detections are still perfect. That's just always a basic problem when we installed a beam in harsh environment or a building which may have issues with slight movement or slight vibration from the working environment. So this easily can be compromised with the dual IR transmission and the wider range of the beam capabilities. Now, another important factors that I need to stress here, it's about not only smoke detection that is able to distinguish, it can also have a flame detection as well. the concept of our detection is obviously it's a smoke detector, but it also detects a small in fire that happens. The presence of a small fire will have an attenuation in terms of the frequency modulation between the transmitter and receiver. And this is quickly detected as a smoke as well. So it's a combination out of a heat and a smoke. It will actually gives you a very early warning when it's needed. So that's it's a built-in function which gives a better um, detection in terms of real-time fire. So this also makes it to prevent false alarm as well as reliable for a very dusty environment. As I said, dust can sometimes be mistaken as smoke. Here in our case, not. As you see, it takes both fire as well as the smoke to do a cross algorithm checking and using the amplitude modulation, and it could give you an early warning. Now, as I mentioned, with the right accessories where we have this controller, you can go up to 8 number of beams installed and controlled to be controlled, as well as to maintain the system, as well as to program the system. Shall be installed somewhere the access of human or the maintenance person can access to the controller, and you don't need all the time to climb up to do the cleaning or to do the alignment when it's misaligned and other relevant maintenance work. It's easy to be achieved by having a controller um, at a human access level. Now, with that note, we will go into the actual projects that we have installed around the world. Here are some of the installation where you can see this is not a recycle plant, but almost recycled materials, which is kept in a warehouse where the beam detectors are installed. And this is a very fine dust accumulating or produced around the factory warehouse, and which can give a false alarm in a normal beam detection. That's where the Pro kicked in here to be installed and to have a better detection as well. Now, next is the actual project again. This is also similar to a warehouse, but this is where all the materials are kept. And you can, as I shown here, the beams are installed at the truss along the detection area or the warehouse area. And this is actually a typical recycling plant. And to be mentioned here, the detection still works, which even the smoke beam has been covered fully with dust. So as I said, with the right use of the Pro and the right settings are being considered, we can easily eliminate any false alarm. And we can also see the beam detections are installed between the trusses or the beams along the beams, which can be an obstacle from most of the beam detector, especially if you're working with the beam transmitter and reflector. Whereas when you have trusses in between, the reflection may give a false alarm. In our cases, due to our range of a wider range of dual beam detection, it could able to distinguish this problem, and we have the right setting on the beams to narrow down such issues to solve issues where beams are in between of the trusses. And finally, I can also show you another typical example of the beam has been installed in a recycling plant in Europe. And at the same time, I'm zooming out for you guys. As you can see in the corner, the beams are working fine without any false alarm being produced on it. So with that note, I'm going to my conclusion for today, why we need to use the beam detectors and because to reduce the false alarm as well as easy to maintain, as you can see, we can install up to 8 number of beam detection and can be controlled from the controller, and they also make sure that staff stays alert and react because the alarm signals will be followed, and skillful of alarm signal and fire alarms are reacted open in a professional manner before they becomes a major incident, and the loss and prevention is maximized here because, as I said, the Pro version could able to distinguish between fire and smoke together. So we have a real alarm instead of a false alarm being detected. And to be mentioned, all our beams are BDS approved, and we also have the UL listed version available for UL market. And we also have ATEX for Zone 1, Zone 2, 21, and 22. And we are also ROHS compliant. With that note, I thank everyone who came for today's webinar and hope this benefits. And if you have further questions regarding the beam and the detections or any technical support is needed, feel free to drop us a mail, or you can also contact us, and kindly also follow us in our social media. Thank you. Now I give it back to Mr. Zach.
Seelan, we've got a few questions, and the first one is,
Yeah.
can beams be installed vertically?
Yes, the question to answer the question, yes, it's also possible with a maximum distance of 200 meters of ILIA. It is possible to be installed vertically.
And the next question is, what is the maximum height allowed for beam to be installed in high bay recycling plants?
As I mentioned by BS standard earlier, generally we have a maximum about 40 meter or to the maximum 43 meters, and it depends in the type of roof used as well.
And the next question is, can we set a delay for the ILIA beam to delay the alarm to the fire panel?
Okay. Well, it should be noted that ILIA has an internal algorithm, and therefore a fire will not occur immediately when the obstructions exceeded the sensitivity value, but this will take typically 16 seconds to produce the signal. So delay is not really required.
All right, so the next question is, can the lenses of the beam detectors be cleaned? If yes, what is the method to be used?
Yeah, this is a common question. Yes, cleaned with a common window cleaner or a soft and clean cloth. But where the ILIA Pro works, it should not be a problem because of the sensitivity that we have. It is suitable for harsh environment. So usually deep cleaning, it's not necessary.
And can the beam detectors be integrated with any fire alarm systems? If yes, how and what additional modules are required to integrate them?
Okay. With Securiton, we have an XLM module that is installed in CLI, which I showed you in additional accessories. And that will be connected to our own fire alarm system. Whereas for a third party, any fire alarm system in the building, we have a relay on the controller, which will release the signals to the relevant fire alarm panel.
All right, thank you very much, Seelan.